Me and my wife, when we got married, she was in her second year of university when we got married, and I had finished. I met her at university. We could even go into that if you want to. I don't know if you want to turn this into a marriage podcast.
There's always do get good views.
I remember listening to Sheikh Omar Suleiman, and he was saying, if I want to break the internet, I'll talk about marriage and jinns,
yes.
or I'll talk about marrying a jinn.
Yes. I assume your wife is not a jinn.
Then being stuff for dads was one of the biggest motivating factors for me to start Dadhood. But the biggest one was that I didn't grow up with my father, but it was like, you're about to become a father and you don't have a relationship with your own father. Like, they felt something wrong within my soul about that.
What is the problem with TV, movies, games for children out there in the mainstream today?
There are a lot of children's shows being produced that goes against our morals as Muslims. If we really want to change the narrative, we really want to protect their fitrah, we want to flip the script, and we want to make sure that our children are growing up with the right messages, media is one of the biggest tools here. Whether that's online media, whether that's TV, movies, that whole media industry is so important for us to pump our time and our energy and our money into. That's what Muslim Kids TV is trying to do.
In today's episode, I'm joined by education and entertainment expert Mohammed Shoaib. Shoaib is head of sales and marketing for Muslim Kids TV, a platform that wants to be the Netflix for Muslim children's TV shows, games, and more. Before that, he's presented and produced shows on channels like Islam Channel, and he's also runs his own podcast, Dadhood, where he talks about his journey being a Muslim father, so do go ahead and check that out. We're going to be talking about the crisis that's being experienced in Muslim entertainment today, children's or otherwise, and how we've left our stories and narratives to be told by others for far, far too long, and how damaging this has actually been for the Ummah in general. And crucially, what solutions there are out there. As always, I'm your host, Areeb Siddiqui, and this is Muslim Money Talk. Before we begin, we actually noticed only about 10% of you are subscribed to the podcast. So if you like what you're listening to and you want to hear more from us and see more things Muslim and money related, then please consider subscribing and, of course, leaving this episode a like and share it with your friends. Leave us a comment or a review, because it really, really does help us out and help more people to find us. Thank you. Now back to the show. Shoaib, assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show, bro.
Wa alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming all the way from Watford.
No, that's all right. It wasn't too bad of a journey. I got my steps in when I was coming down from the train station.
And take notes to future guests. There's been a few guests who brought we brought gifts before. But alhamdulillah, this is, for our listeners, a very heavy box of donuts.
Yes.
Which
I hope that tops the gift selections that you've had.
It's up there. It's definitely up there. But yeah, thanks so much, man. Thanks for making the time today.
No worries.
To make it to the show. So there's a lot that I want to get into with you because it's so topical and it's so front of mind for many people, especially post October 7th.
Yeah.
With a lot of people realizing and understanding how much of our entertainment have subliminal, subtle, and sometimes not so subtle messaging that's very much anti-Islamic and Islamophobic.
Yeah.
And how it's very important for us to start making our own media. So I want to hear all about that, what you guys are doing at Muslim Kids TV. But same question I usually start off with, is this what you imagined you'd be doing as a kid? Did you always want to be in entertainment?
No, I didn't really imagine that. Growing up, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. But the things that I was really interested in were things about the world. So politics, religion, philosophy, economics. These are kind of things I would read into. These are kind of documentaries I'd watch growing up. These are the kind of, books I'd buy, or even when I used to listen to music, the type of music I'd consume would be around this kind of thing. It wouldn't be kind of the popular tracks. It would be finding these artists who are speaking about social issues and things like that.
Yeah.
So, that's really what I was interested in, but I had no idea what would become of that. I had no ambition of there's a particular career I want to go into, or I want to turn this passion into something. And that's kind of what made me choose my decision of education. So I went to university to study politics, philosophy, and economics. PPE, where they say the Prime Minister's degree, right?
Yeah.
But I had no intention of getting into politics in that way. I actually had no intention of what that degree was going to lead me into, but I just knew that these were the topics that I was interested in.
It's a good degree to do.
Yeah. And hopefully something happens from there. And then, as we go into it, things have kind of steered me towards the direction of media, steered me towards the direction of education in my local community, as well as through the media platforms, focusing a lot on education as well. So it's kind of, things have twisted and turned. So it hasn't necessarily been what you asked, which is, did I imagine this? I didn't. It's kind of just come through.
Because you spent some time in the charity sector, I think, at the start of your career. You were at Mend?
Right? Exactly. Yeah. So straight after I graduated, actually while I was at university, I met a member of Mend. And it kind of really interested me because I was struggling to think, what could I do with this degree? PPE, what do I do? And when I saw the brothers at Mend, I thought, wow, they've built this kind of organization that is focused on Muslim rights in the UK, focused on tackling Islamophobia. And clearly somebody like me who has an interest in politics and economics, in understanding world systems, could do something here. I could possibly help them. So I kind of got back in touch with them towards the end of my degree and said, look, if you have any positions open, I'm about to graduate. I'd love to join you guys and see what I could do. And alhamdulillah, they had an opportunity available, went through the interview stages, and I was able to work there for about 4 years after graduating.
Okay.
And that sort of, really helped.
Yeah, you put in quite a lot of time there then.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know, MEN stands for, is it Muslim Education and Development?
Almost. Okay. Engagement and Development.
Muslim Engagement and Development. Okay.
Yeah, so to kind of go into what it does, the company was set up to, a lot of it is education, by the way, so you're not kind of wrong there. It's set up to really educate Muslims about politics, about media, and how they can get involved in those spaces in order to tell our own stories. Fine. And to really live up to what we
super topical to this podcast, to this episode, to what you do now. Okay.
So there is a link. There is a link.
There's a clear link.
There is a clear link. So it does kind of work. And to be honest, towards my end, the last year that I was at Mend, for like 4 years, my main role was going out to communities and telling them what the media industry is all about, what our local politics is all about, and how Muslims can get involved in that. But towards the last year, what I found the most enjoyable was the kind of education part of it, rather than kind of like anything else in terms of their activism or recruiting the volunteers or whatever else it was that was involved in my job. The main thing was the education that I really enjoyed. It's like people coming in, they're getting really inspired. They're like, okay, how do I now make an impact in the media space or in the politics space? And then I'm able to like take that and really push them forward and say, this is what you should do. So that, I guess, is what pushed me in the direction of my next stage, which was going over to work in Islam Channel.
Because that was really interesting, because there you were a presenter and you were also producing your own shows. And this was Islam Channel, I want to say like 2019, 2018.
Yeah, I always get the dates mixed up. It becomes a bit of a blur. But I joined within the COVID sort of lockdown.
And Islam Channel did like a big rebrand at that point,
yes,
I believe. Because for the longest time, I think a lot of people saw Islam Channel as a bit of an older, stale type channel that you would only really put on in Ramadan, just before iftar time, before you're about to break your fast. And then they did this big rebrand where suddenly they put so much focus on YouTube, on podcasting, on more up-to-date shows, talk show type formats. And were you kind of the brains behind that?
I wasn't the brains behind it. I've been... somebody's asked me that question before, actually, because I kind of coincided with the growth. In terms of me joining, coincided with all this growth. I'd like to think I was part of that, but it wasn't completely down to me. I mean, that growth was already being planned. I think I was part of that plan. It was like, okay, let's try and bring in Shoaib and see what he can do as well. And that's what happened. There was that transition, Islam Channel, even the logo changed, to kind of make it look a bit more modern.
The black and gold.
The black and gold and the arch and all these different elements behind it. There was a big focus on social media. And now, Islam Channel is almost at 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Wow. It's really kind of reaching close to that now. And there was a big focus on, okay, how do we tell our stories online? Because that's the point of Islam Channel was I think it launched in 2006, I believe, or maybe 2004. I get my dates mixed up. As you can tell, I'm not very good with dates, right? But the point being is that it was post 9/11, and it was like, the founder, Mohammed was like, how do we really tell our stories? I mean, he's being invited on BBCs and Sky and all of that kind of stuff to talk about what Muslims have to say because of the whole post 9/11 era that we're in. And he's like, okay, I'm going to be interviewed by all these people, and they're going to have their own way of asking certain questions. How do we have a permanent platform that we can push news out, we can push our stories out, we can push our own, guests out, our own people out? And that's where it started from. But now, how do you continue doing that in 2025? You have to do that in the online space. So during that time when I joined, there was a big push towards there. And I really got to be part of it. We experimented with loads of different types of videos, podcasts, guests, like you said, show formats. And I did as much as I could during that.
And you hosted a podcast as well.
Yeah. So I launched the Islam Channel podcast.
Yeah.
I was approached, while we were around a meeting table like this. They said, okay, what else can we do? Shoaib, do you want to do a podcast? And I was like, okay, let's do it.
What made them think that you were the right guy for the job?
Well, alhamdulillah, I have been running my own podcast for a few years.
Oh, so Dadhood was already going?
Dadhood was already going. So Dadhood kind of coincided with me joining Islam Channel.
Really? Okay.
Because part of the kind of transitions here is, I was enjoying the education and the media side of things.
Yeah.
I wanted to take that further within the media industry. So joined Islam Channel. And I thought, if I join Islam Channel as a presenter and producer, I can learn a lot because I have no background in media in terms of camera work, microphones, all this kind of stuff. But going into that space, I learned so much. And I also had the intention of, I did want to start my own podcast. So if I work in Islam Channel, I could learn a lot and I could apply that to my own podcast. So at the same time, the same year I joined Islam Channel, I also launched my podcast because it kind of made sense. I'm already in that space. I know how everything works within the behind the scenes. I can just apply that to my podcast.
How did it feel? Because ever since you graduated, you had the benefit, which not a lot of people do, in working in fully Muslim organizations.
Yeah.
I don't think you've ever worked in something that's not a Muslim organization.
Haven't.
SubhanAllah, that's crazy. I have so many questions about that.
Please.
Has it all been good, or do you find sometimes, as many people often say, the professionalism sometimes lacks in Muslim organizations?
I'm really glad that you asked this question, not because I'm going to expose anything, but because I don't think it gets talked about enough. I think people don't fully understand how you can grow and survive within the Muslim industry. And it's so I think it's good that we're speaking about it. So I think there's good and bad here. One thing is that, I always felt like I should have done something with my degree that was more in line with what a typical career ladder would look like. And I was advised this very early on. I was told, don't go into MEND by some older mentors. Don't go into MEND, don't go into the Muslim space, go into civil service or go into some think tanks, go into something that's going to kind of show in your CV that you're kind of growing and you're going to go up the career ladder. I didn't listen. I think I was a bit rebellious. And, if I'm studying politics and philosophy, I have that kind of personality to be like, I just want to carve my own path. And I didn't really listen. And in some ways, I regret that. In some ways, I'm like, maybe I should have done that because it took me a long time to get to a stage where I felt comfortable in my career growth. Whereas for the first few years of my life, of coming out of university, it was a big struggle because when you work in the Muslim industry, you don't earn a big salary at all.
Yeah.
And I got married very early, had children very early. And so it was really difficult for me to set up that life for my family. Only, the past few years, I would say maybe 2 to 3 years is where I felt, okay, I'm at a very decent space now. Like I can feel a bit more financially free in a way. So in one way, I kind of regret that. But in another way, when I speak to brothers who have been in the corporate world for so long, and I hear the kind of problems they're going through when it comes to trying to, practice their faith, things that they have to compromise in the workspace, things that they're not allowed to speak about, not having maybe a brotherhood or a sisterhood at the workspace, finding it difficult to pray or to get to Jummah on time. All of these things that are kind of problems that clash between the corporate world and your faith, you being Muslim. I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
You know, I've never had to go through a
Subhanallah,
difficulty,
wow.
alhamdulillah. Like, I've always been able to pray on time, alhamdulillah. I've always been able to speak whatever I wanted to say. You know, not feeling afraid that my boss is gonna, you know, look at me awkwardly if I speak about Palestine or I mention something about God or whatever it is, right? There was always a Allah-centric, faith-centric discussions that took place in wherever I worked. You know, and even to the extent where it's like, oh, I need some time off because of a family matter. There's a lot more understanding because everybody understands the importance of family when you're working with primarily just Muslims. So things like that is a big pro, I'd say. But like I said, the cons were the salary. They don't pay what the market rate is. And like you said, the lack of professionalism is definitely there.
Really?
Although things have really changed, right? So like I've spoken to my elder mentors who kind of advised me not to go into it straight away. And they're of the mentality that the Muslim spaces are still very unprofessional because, you know, they're a little bit older and that's what they experienced then. But I've been able to tell them how it is now. Because you're finding that, you know, things are changing where a lot of the management now are the sort of the next generation down who have experienced the corporate world and then moved over to kind of manage Muslim organizations or Muslim charities. And so there is that level of professionalism that is being brought in from the top down. And as well as from the bottom up, you know, those who go into those industries, they're a bit more aware about how things should be.
Yeah, and it's starting to change. I think I think a lot of this, and I want to make it clear to the listeners that this isn't Islam. A lot of this are cultural things coming over from people who are maybe first or second generation from certain countries, where the work standards just weren't as high. And I think some of those bled into some organizations a long time ago, but things have changed and come a long way. Alhamdulillah. But, you know, it's so interesting because some of our listeners are from Muslim majority countries and they may not understand it, but it's hugely mentally taxing when you're working in a career and you're really getting anxiety about I need to pray on time. There's nowhere for me I can't find a free meeting room. I need to find a staircase, or I need to go outside. I need to figure out, can I make it to the local masjid on time and then come back for this meeting? It's a huge mental drain.
For sure.
And as the saying goes, more money, more problems. So that can sometimes be the case. Okay, so you touched on something there. You got married and became a dad very early on. And I was really interested because I've seen your podcast. I've seen a few episodes just over the years on Dadhood. I became a dad 2.5, 3 years ago.
MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah. But
so you're going to be a guest on Dadhood now?
Yeah, sure. I'll have to be. But becoming a father that young in that industry, how did it change you? How did that make you more of a man, I guess?
Yeah, so I got married when I was 21, turning 22, within the same sort of month. My wife got pregnant pretty much straight away. And
oh man, same story as me.
Yeah. We can't, we're not very good at
Those birth rates are high for a reason.
So yeah, pretty much 22 years old and I'm a father.
22 years old?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How old is your oldest child now?
So he's 6.
He's 6, okay.
Yeah, so I am 29 at the moment.
29.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah, so, and I've got 3 now. Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Amazing.
So, sorry, what was the question? How was it being a father that early, right?
Did it change you?
Yeah.
You had to grow up so quickly.
I had to grow up so quick. I mean, I'll tell you how quick I really had to grow up. Me and my wife, when we got married, so she was in her second year of university when we got married, and I had finished. I had already started my career. I met her at university. We could even go into that if you want to. I don't know if you want to turn this into a marriage podcast.
But there's always do get good views.
Like I remember listening to Sheikh Omar Suleiman, and he was saying, if I want to break the internet, I'll talk about marriage and jinns, or I'll talk about marrying a jinn.
Yes, that's exactly. That's the double thing we need to go into. But I assume your wife is not a jinn. So we can't click on that. We can cut that if you want.
That'll be a good clip.
How did you guys meet?
So I was in my final year. She was in her first year.
Okay.
I was the head of the ISOC at the time. And so she started working within the team. And at that time, I wasn't interested in getting married to anyone, to be honest. I was kind of like in the process of like, okay, I'm about to graduate soon.
Yeah.
I do want to kind of start looking. So I did start putting stuff out there. Like I made a little marriage profile, sent that out to some aunties, see what was coming around, you know, stuff like this. And there were a few people that were interested in me, and you know, but I hadn't paid attention to this who I was marrying now. She was just kind of part of the team, and then it wasn't until I had graduated, and then I was starting a master's actually. So I started a master's in public policy at Queen Mary's University, and I got a message from one of those aunties that I had sent the thing through to, and she was like, "How's it going? Have you found anyone?" And I was like, "No, I haven't found anyone." But what had happened is during that summer period, my wife, who I'm married to now, she at the time, so she actually messaged me and she said that I heard that you're looking to get married. Would you be interested, basically?
Oh, amazing.
So she kind of reached out to me. And then I was like, at that time, I was like, I don't know, I'm about to start a master's. Should I really be thinking about this? I was like, I'm kind of in two minds, because I put myself out there. I kind of got some things back. Some things I like met with one father, didn't really work out, etc., etc. So I was a bit more focused on my master's. So I kind of said no to it at the time. Then when the auntie told me, is anybody interested in you? And I was like, there was one sister who kind of messaged, and, you know, she said, you know, do you want to set up a meeting between me and my wali and things like this? And I said no to her. She was like, what are you doing, Shoaib?
Yeah, literally.
What are you doing?
That's my thoughts exactly. That's
you had an opportunity here.
99% of the problem is you finding someone.
Honestly. So it was like came to my doorstep, and I was like, no. So she was like, no, you're crazy. She was like, at least have the meeting. Yeah. All she's asking for is a meeting. Yeah. And she's going about it the completely right way. She's not like, you know, done anything wrong or anything like that. She's opened the conversation and said, speak to my wali. I said, all right, fine. So I messaged her back and I said, okay, let's do it. Send me your wali's number. So she is English. Revert Muslim.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
and what's your background?
So I'm Pakistani.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So her wali wouldn't have been her father. Her father's non-Muslim. Yeah. So wali would have been the local imam near our university, who I already knew. Yeah. So I just spoke to him, and he was like, I think it might be a good idea for us to have a meeting. Okay. We had a few meetings, met with her family, she met with my family, and it worked out, basically. Yeah. She ticked all the boxes, alhamdulillah. And I didn't expect it, because at that time, I'm not really looking to get married. I'm focused on my master's, and I didn't even think about marrying somebody who's a Revert or an English lady or anything like that.
Had never crossed your mind.
Had never really crossed my mind. I always just thought it was going to be the kind of normal thing of, if you're Pakistani, you're probably going to marry a Pakistani girl, and, you know, your mom might introduce you to someone, or you might find somebody, and, you know.
How was that? What did your parents say?
At first, my mom was quite hesitant, because completely new, you know, nobody in our family had married outside the culture, so it was completely new, but she was open to it. You know, she's the kind of mum that always let me and my siblings kind of choose what we wanted to do. Like, she didn't really force us down a particular degree for university or a particular career. She was just very supportive. So she was just like, it's a bit weird, but let's see what this is all about. And she was really happy with my wife, and it worked out in that way. And that kind of actually opened the door for then my sister. So my sister got married after me, and she got married to African American. And if, you know, given our cultures, Asian cultures, it's like, whoa, that's a completely different culture, right? Completely big shift, right, for us. But I think I kind of broke the ice there, so it was a bit easier for my sister to
generational impact.
Yeah. So now, like, you know, my kids and my sister's kids are like all different cultures going on.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. And so you got married.
I think the original question was about being a dad.
Yeah, but you've found yourself, you guys had fallen pregnant earlier than expected. I assume earlier than expected.
Yeah.
You're very young. You just started working, or you were still studying at that point?
So what was interesting is I was doing my master's part-time whilst working full-time at Mend.
Oh, at Mend, okay. Because when I found out I was becoming a father, Kestrl was like in a really tricky period as a startup. Because as you know, startups go through ups and downs, especially in those early days. There's a reason why 90% of startups don't make it through their first year.
Yeah.
And I just got married. My wife had come into the room and is like, okay, so this is happening. And
is that how she dropped it to you?
No, I don't know if I can say exactly how
Okay,
it was
okay,
dropped,
sure,
but
sure,
it was
sure.
a bit more emotional than that,
Okay,
right?
okay.
So,
Yeah,
because it was quite unexpected. But I remember being really excited. But looking back on it, I'm thinking I was so naive
yeah. Right.
about what it actually meant
Yeah.
to be a father and the responsibility that
Yeah.
I was going to have to take on. And it slowly kind of dawned on me over the next 9 months what was happening, especially when Kestrl was going through this up and down period. Alhamdulillah, I saw the benefit of the Baraqa that comes into your life,
Yeah.
becoming a father, and that I do believe that Kestrl survived because
SubhanAllah.
my son was born when he was. But we found like a whole new revenue stream that we weren't expecting before. B2B catering to Islamic banks was never on the roadmap, and then suddenly banks were reaching out to us
Yeah.
to do that. Did you find a similar experience?
100%. And if you ask, any father that is working hard at trying to grow their career or their business, and they have a child, like 99% of the time, they're like, when my child was born or shortly after or just before, something happened to my career growth or something happened to my business, and Allah just put barakah in it. And I found a very similar thing. At first, when I found out, I was like, I just went straight into survival mode.
Really?
I was like, all right, cool. What do I need to do now? And the plan was that my wife was going to finish her degree and I was going to finish my master's, and then we'd move in together with each other. We'd live apart until that's all done, and then, meet as much as we can.
So she was still living at her parents, you were still living at yours?
I was living at my parents. She was actually living in university accommodation, a house with some other sisters that were studying on the same course as her.
Okay.
And then, when she told me she's pregnant, I was like, you can't be staying there by yourself. I'm going to have to take care of you because things are going to change dramatically.
Yeah,
and very early into the pregnancy, it was very stressful for her. So she couldn't actually carry on her degree. She had to take a pause. So she told the university, she's going to take a pause for her until she gives birth. And then if she can go back, she'll go back. She didn't end up going back. And for me, I was like, well, if we're going to live together, it was hard for her to move into my parents' house because my brother still lived there. Okay. And so it would be a problem when it comes
wearing
to
hijab all the time.
Hijab, and she was like, she wore a niqab as well, and it was very difficult in that way. And then pregnant, and then you don't want all that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, we're gonna have to move in with each other. So then I had to sacrifice something as well. Then she sacrificed her degree because it was too hard with the stress of the baby, and then I had to look, am I gonna sacrifice my part-time degree or my full-time income? Obviously the degree was going to go, right? So the degree went because I needed to give time to my wife, and that's when I had to find somewhere to live. So I ended up finding somewhere in Essex, which was a bit more affordable than living in London, because I was working at Mend, you're not going to be earning an amazing salary, it's a charity at the end of the day. So I was actually on a 20k wage. Nothing. Wow. I was on a 20k wage.
And this was what, 2017?
This is 2017-18. So
for people outside the UK, 20k around London that's barely kind of survivable.
Barely. But Allah put some barakah in it because I made the intention of taking care of my wife, of moving out, getting our own space. We moved somewhere in Essex, Chelmsford, where there's a train line that goes straight into East London, where Mend office was, and the other way the train is going into the other part of Essex where my wife's family is. And so that was kind of like ideal for us, and Allah just made it easy. My wife wasn't working. I was the only one that was working. And ever since we got married up until now, she's never had to work. I've always been working and providing for everything. That kind of taught me a lot. The sacrifice I had to make, the hard work I had to do. And, just a few months before my son was born, I knew I needed extra funds to be able to support the baby coming into the world. So, I took on a second job in the morning at a coffee shop. So the coffee shop was right next to the Chelmsford train station that I would get on to go to get the train into London. So I'd go there at 5 a.m. I'd open the shop and make sandwiches, coffees, etc., serve everyone. 9, 10 a.m. I'd just jump straight on the train. Wow. I'll go down to Mend, get started. I'm a work in Mend, finish there about usually 7, 8 o'clock, then get on the train and go back home. And I did that for, I think, about 5 months before my son was born. Incredible. In order to kind of like get a bit more dough in the house. And but alhamdulillah, after my son was born, that's when I got a promotion at work. So they were able to pay me a bit more, take on a bit more responsibility. And then things have kind of grown and grown since then.
Thank you for listening to Muslim Money Talk. If you like what you've heard so far, you might be interested in checking out what we do at Kestrl, the Muslim Money app. Kestrl is a service that helps Muslims who want to grow their wealth without having to compromise, whether it's on their belief or user experience or price. I founded Kestrl because of how fed up I was at how poor Islamic financial services were in this country. Often people didn't use them because of how bad the user experience or customer service, and indeed how high on price they were. So Kestrl was the answer to that. If you download the Kestrl app today, it can help you by creating a budgeting plan. Plug in whatever bank account you have and it will create a auto budget just for you. You can then tell us what goals you're saving for and we'll save towards them automatically into pots, and then crucially link you towards Sharia compliant investment and savings products as well. So download Kestrl today and try it out for yourself. Now back to the podcast.
Yeah.
Zola, thank you so much for sharing and getting so personal with that.
That's okay.
Is that what inspired you to make a whole podcast around this journey? Dadhood, was that the reasoning for it? Is it being a father whilst also being Muslim? And I guess there aren't too many channels for Muslim fathers. There's so many like sisters group and Muslim mothers sisters groups and all that, but I've not really seen one for dads.
Yes, so there not being stuff for dads was one of the biggest motivating factors for me to start Dadhood. But the biggest one was that I didn't grow up with my father. And so my mum and my dad divorced when I was like maybe 1 year old. So I had never seen him. And I only reconnected with him after my son was born. So there was no
contact at all?
No contact. So there was a huge kind of court case, and there was a lot of difficulty basically between my mum and my dad, and how that kind of had to be resolved. And I've kind of gone into a bit more detail on other podcasts about this, so people can listen to it. But point being is that I wasn't able to have contact with my father up until I was about 16. So after about 16 years old is when everything finished, and I'm allowed to then go ahead and make my own contact. I can do what I want, basically. But I chose not to. So there was a lot of like resentment that I had against my father for all the things that had happened over the years. And so I didn't until my son was about to be born. And when my son was about to be born, a kind of question, I don't know, maybe Allah put this question in my head, but it was like, you're about to become a father and you don't have a relationship with your own father. Like, it felt something wrong within my soul about that. So, my wife really encouraged me to get in touch with my dad, and I managed to find his number from family members. Okay. I kind of got in touch, and I said, "It's your son, Shoaib. Happy to connect with you." And I was really scared that this was going to be like, he doesn't want anything to do with me. Yeah. But he was genuinely happy that he had heard from me. And I was like, wow, like this whole time that I thought, because of the resentment I thought it was going to be like a clash. Of course. But it wasn't. And that is what really motivated me to start Dadhood, because I was like, I know that there are loads of other Muslims out there that are from single parent households, haven't grown up with their dad, and are probably very nervous about becoming a dad the same way I was. And if I can do something in this space, as well as there not being enough conversations about Muslim dads anyway, like you mentioned. So if I can do something in this space, whether that's YouTube videos, podcasts, articles, whatever it is, I think I should do it, because at some point, somebody like me who didn't grow up with their dad is going to be searching online how to be a dad, right? And I hope that Dadhood pops up for them and they find a space and a community that they can, gravitate towards, and they can find some sort of relief. They're like, okay, they're talking about everything, all the questions that I had in my head that I didn't know how to answer because I've never had a dad to look up to. These guys, these guests, this podcast has kind of answered that for me. So that was the main thing.
Incredible, mashallah. May Allah bless you for those efforts, because I've not seen anything else like that out there. Incredible.
Alhamdulillah.
So I really want to get into what you're doing at Muslim Kids TV, because I think it's kind of this beautiful cherry on the top of this career that you've been building in the Muslim space and education, becoming a father, fatherhood, and now your relationship with your own children. Yeah. What is the problem with TV, movies, games for children out there in the mainstream today?
There's a plethora of problems, unfortunately. What we're finding now from the first thing that comes to mind is how shows are being created now versus how they were created when we were growing up. In terms of, first of all, the animations. So there is a big talk right now about screen time and how screen time can be very damaging. Growing up, probably our parents never heard this term screen time, and we could just be sat in front of the TV for hours, and
the closest thing was don't sit too near to the TV.
That was it, right? Yeah.
Your eyes will turn square or
something
like that.
And there's something to do with the kind of old style TVs and the kind of rays that they would emit or something like this, right? But there was never this idea of like, if you have too much screen time, it's gonna like scramble your brain or something like this. But recently, of course, there's been loads of studies coming out, and even the NHS advises that below 2 years old, there should be no screen time at all. And then after 2 years old, there can be screen time, but it should be only like video calls with family or something that is something live. And then even after that, if they say, okay, you can watch cartoons or YouTube and whatnot, but it should be limited to 30 minutes to an hour a day. So all this research is coming out. Why is all this research coming out? Because it's not necessarily to do with the screen itself, but what content is being shown on the screen. If you look back at the cartoons that we watched growing up, the scene would only change maybe every 6 to 8 seconds. Now the scenes are changing every 2 to 3 seconds, sometimes quicker than that on certain shows.
So it caters to short attention spans.
Yes.
People getting bored with something.
Yes.
And the thing which is coming to mind the most is, I think, for some of the parents out there, they'll probably know it, Coco Melon.
Coco Melon, yes.
Right, which is this very bright, very vibrant little show for babies on TV, but people are saying it's really overstimulating them and destroying attention spans before they've even had a chance to use them in any meaningful way before school age.
They're already being programmed to want to see different things all the time. For them to be able to just focus on your face, that was what babies and toddlers are supposed to do for their brain development. They are not being programmed to do that because what they're watching for so many hours in the day is always changing. Then on top of that, like you mentioned, the bright colors. Now, this also wasn't something that existed in the cartoons that we watched when we were younger, because there wasn't HD. And it was very hard to produce that kind of color from the TV screen. Sure. Now you can produce, 4K, 8K, you can make really bright colors. And that's really, oversaturated and can very much affect a child's cognitive abilities because of how much information is being fed into their brain. So that's the first part, is that the way that the shows are being made, the colors and the speed at which everything's being shown is damaging. So that's one problem we're facing.
But that's not specifically a Muslim
that's
problem.
Not
that's just a human
problem,
health
that's just
issue.
A problem for all of us, right? And we should be careful of that from a health angle. Then there's the problem with the content, which is where Muslims or anybody that is more morally conscious or follows any particular faith would be shocked now, because there are a lot of children's shows being produced that goes against our morals as Muslims. You have shows which are pushing characters that come from various different sexual backgrounds. You have storylines that are being pushed that you could say celebrate some of the occupying, entities in the world at the moment. You have movies that are coming out that are very supportive of those kind of storylines. You have actors in those movies that are very supportive of this. And you have lessons that are being drawn which open up a can of worms of, being very secularist in their approach of teaching morals, which very much removes the idea of accountability towards a higher power or God or something like this. And a lot of the shows are very much focused on the self and very much focused on becoming your own person, your own individuality, becoming something that's like the main part of the character now.
It pushes the message, whatever that might be at the time, which as Muslims we have to be very cognizant of, and everyone has a right to understand what media their children are exposed to and to choose whether or not to say no to it. But I think as busy parents, sometimes you just think, oh, it's a kid's show, it's fine, right? There's nothing explicit in there. They're not swearing. There's no like sexual explicit behavior on there. I'll just put it on. It's fine. But there's all this like subtle stuff which is coming through. I'm thinking of examples. I was trying to rack my brain for them. Sometimes I remember growing up, there would just be like kids shows on Disney or Nickelodeon where there'd be some weird reference, like a character would just say, "Oh, stay back, I know Krav Maga," right, or something like they're being bullied. And Krav Maga, for people who don't know, is a martial art that is developed and pretty much only employed by the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF, when subjugating Palestinians, right? Which is a bizarre thing to put into a children's show like Recess or something on Disney. And then I was watching a movie the other day, like the latest Predator movie, right? It's a silly movie about all these soldiers get thrown onto a planet and this alien is hunting them down. Yeah. And they're all going around, right? Like, okay, where are you from? It's like, oh yeah, I was part of special forces in the SAS. Oh yeah, I was a US Marine. It gets to this woman, it's like, yeah, I was a sniper for the IDF.
Oh my gosh. Subhanallah.
It's like a sniper. Not just the IDF, but a sniper of all things. What do you think they were sniping?
Of course.
Right. And when it comes to them all like sharing war stories and stuff, and then it gets to her part, and the American soldier's like, don't worry, you don't need to share that.
Yeah.
It's fine. And it's like, that's the normalization.
Yeah.
Which is happening and has happened for the longest time.
And to be honest, this has happened for a long time. So when working at Mend, one of the things that we would do, we had media workshops to kind of break down how the media industry works, how you can enter into it, whether you're a journalist or whatever it may be. But the first thing in that media workshop is to understand what you're walking into. And we'd have a whole module on Orientalism and how Orientalism has been kind of inserted within the media industry. So you have, things that we've grown up with, like Aladdin, that is portraying Arabs or Indians or Muslims in a particular light, where they've got swords and they're angry and they're stealing things and they're chopping hands off. And
even the opening song to Aladdin,
like,
they'll cut off your nose if they don't like your face.
There you go, right?
And I think the only characters that looked like normal people were the main characters, Aladdin and Jasmine. Everyone else just looked like a stereotype.
Yeah, exactly.
In there. But yet, as kids, like, if someone said, "Oh yeah, what's your favorite Disney?" you kind of felt, "Oh yeah, it's the Muslim one, right?" Aladdin. Yeah. Even though, like, the princess basically is wearing a bikini throughout the movie. And
sometimes, okay, maybe we have a certain filter as Muslims to, our parents may have taught us certain lessons that allows us to filter certain content in a particular way. But then what about everybody else? How are they then viewing Muslims when they see this kind of stuff, right? Yeah. Same thing when you had, movies like Homelander, what was that show?
Homeland,
where, the celebrating the fact that, he's in a part of a military operation that is killing our brothers and sisters, and he's being celebrated by that and through that. So all of this sort of already exists, and then it's also feeding into the children's shows as well, and the cartoons, the animations that we're watching. I mean, not too long ago, this is something me and my wife do, and I recommend all parents do, is that we watch any movies or shows before we let our children watch them. So we watched a movie called Zootropolis, which I'm not sure if this is Disney or DreamWorks.
It's Disney,
Disney, and the underlying theme in all of that was how the rabbit escapes from her family to chase her own dreams because her family is holding her back, and she wants to be this individual free person that can do whatever she wants, even if that means partnering up with a thief, even if that means of going through all of these kind of crazy scenarios. Even there was a scene where the fox and the rabbit go to a place where clearly the animals are doing drugs. It's basically what they're showing, right?
Oh, the yoga one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're clearly like in this kind of hippie environment where they're doing drugs and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And it's like, as an adult, I can see all of these damaging themes being put into this underlying message of, what this rabbit wants to do with her life and how she wants to escape from her family. And only right at the end, it's like, oh, I really do love my family. But, the main message was go out there and do what you want to do. I can see it as an adult. How my children really get, they're not going to realize that. They're just going to think it's a fun movie with animals. But there is a subliminal message that will come through. And the more they engage with those kind of shows and movies, and the more of that kind of content that they take in, whether that's novels that they're reading, whether that's the Harry Potters of the world where they're normalizing magic and these kind of things, it's clearly going to create this kind of, bedrock of
dissent
problem. Yeah, and dissent. Yeah.
So how is Muslim Kids TV tackling these things where you talked about there's a health risk, there's a content risk, there's this kind of subliminal messaging? Was that the basis for Muslim Kids TV?
Yeah, so Muslim Kids TV was born out of definitely this need that we need high quality shows for Muslim children and Muslim audiences. Now, growing up, if you watch any Muslim shows, it would have very likely been very low quality stuff. They probably did their job, they probably got the message across that should kind of go across to Muslim children, but it would have been done in a very low quality way.
It felt like homework.
Yeah.
That's what it was, right? It wasn't like you were sitting down to watch SpongeBob.
Exactly. It wasn't like, oh, that's a character that I really love and I'm going to watch that character and I've got toys of that character and, all that. I'm going to wear the pajamas, It wasn't like that. Yeah, exactly. It was like your parents kind of put it on and that's what you were going to watch. Sure. And then when you were watching it, it wasn't really meeting the quality of the Disneys and the Nickelodeons and whatnot. So it was kind of born out of that, like, how do we make high quality Muslim children's shows? So there's a production house that precedes Muslim Kids TV called Milo Productions, which kind of owns Muslim Kids TV. They've been creating Muslim shows in Canada for decades. And then in 2016 is when they made the decision to take all of those shows and house them on an app that would be similar to Netflix or Disney Plus.
Right.
And since then, there's been loads of iterations of the app, and there's been a whole team that has grown behind that. There's a production house in Canada that continues to produce content for Muslim Kids TV. There's an outreach specialist that is reaching out to other media houses across the globe to bring in productions into the Muslim Kids TV app that are halal Muslim friendly. Okay. You have a marketing team, you have an in-app development IT team, you've got sales. So it's kind of grown since 2016, so it's reaching its 10th year soon, inshallah. And it's the biggest one out there.
How is it funded?
It's got some grants from the Canadian government. So the Canadian government fund a lot of media that are from Canada, so movies, shows, cartoons, etc. And they give grants, so it's not a loan. You get tax relief benefits as well, and the things that they're looking for is diverse. They want shows that they can show, look, Canada's producing diverse content. And as Muslims, we fit the bill. Sometimes we get scared when it comes to, they want diversity and inclusion. But if you can pitch it in the correct way, you can definitely utilize those funds when it comes to diversity and inclusion for the sake of telling your stories as a Muslim.
For sure.
And that's what we've been able to do. And we've never compromised on our values. It's very clear that we're not going to show any characters that are part of any other trend that goes against our values. And we definitely push Muslim content, Muslim stories through the productions we've made. So that's a big help. And then we've got local investors from Canada as well, Muslims, who, alhamdulillah, have high net worth individuals, and they've pumped a lot of money into Muslim Kids TV. So they're investors. But so far, we haven't taken any big investment funds from bodies like Y Combinator.
But I think that's important, especially when you look at often who sits at the top of those funds and what their agendas are. Yeah, the freedom to remain independent to an extent is really important, especially in this space. So, what are your most popular TV shows out there at the moment?
That's a very good question. So we have. Not the most popular, but one that's upcoming. I'll start with that, which is called Time Hoppers, which is a 3D animated series as well as a movie that's going to be shown in theaters.
Really?
Yeah. We've already got some distribution deals going on in areas like Saudi Arabia and in the Gulf states, in Canada and America, and soon in the UK as well. And this is about a group of children in 2050 who they go to a private Islamic school in Canada. And one of the professors has basically produced a machine that could time travel. Kids have fallen into the machine, and now they go back to the golden ages of Islam, right? I don't always like using that term, but it's just it helps. Some of the viewers are more familiar with that kind of word. So go back to those years and meet all of these scientists and these scholars, men and women of Islam. And they meet these people in order to figure out how to get back to the future again, because they are the most intellectual minds. So they might be able to help them solve, how to, read the map or how to get through a particular challenge.
Yeah.
So they have to do all of that. And there's one evil character, as there always is, that tries to keep those children from going to the future and to try and find the secret of time travel himself.
Very cool.
So that's going to be really cool. And that's, you can actually find, I think the trailers of that is already out on our YouTube channel.
Okay, we'll put a link to it.
Yeah.
Link to it for sure.
You can find it. That is like Disney level animation quality. Like a lot of money has been pumped into that. I think it's almost a £2 million project so far. Probably more money now is going to go into marketing as well. So it could very easily go all the way up to £10 million, this kind of project, or dollars.
Wow.
So that's like a big one. That's going to be like a flagship, inshallah.
Okay,
and that's like, the idea is like, let's rival the mainstream with
let's rival
something
Hollywood.
Like this.
Yeah, for sure.
But then we've got other things. So we've got original characters like Mango the cat, which the kids really, really love. What's really interesting is that it does take, some time for the kids to give up the Spider-Mans, the Peppa Pigs, the Cocomelons, the Harry Potters, whatever else you're showing them, and get them hooked onto our characters. Mango the cat, you've got Zainab and Naji, you've got Franklin, you've got a bunch of these other characters that we've created or we've sourced from other creators and put them into our app. Because obviously they're used to seeing these mainstream characters.
The market is flooded.
So, like you said, parents, sometimes it's hard, right? You just want to put something on and you just want your children to be distracted so you can get along with what you want to get on with. But if the parents just put a little bit of effort of trying to show them these shows every single day, I would say about 2 to 3 weeks, you'll find the behavior shifts and they do begin to recognize these characters and they do begin to find a love for these characters because the way the shows are now made are much more high quality. The storylines are much better. The animation quality is much better. Everything that goes into making a good production, Muslim Kids TV is rivaling the mainstream shows. So my own kids now ask me to watch shows on Muslim Kids TV rather than watching their Disneys and Netflix because they now recognize the characters that exist on Muslim Kids TV.
That's so interesting because I'm just thinking like in terms of what I show my own, I've got a 2 almost 3-year-old son and I've got a 6-month-old, so she doesn't watch anything. She's not meant to. But my boy, he's very interested in, it's very simple, right? Animals, dinosaurs in particular. Dinosaurs are his number one thing, whatever it is. And then cars and construction, diggers. So any show that's centered around that, he will watch.
Okay.
What most of the time he's focused on are like documentary style things because it's easy as long as it doesn't get too violent with like a dinosaur ripping apart another one which happens, right? We'll just fast forward that. But it's like an easy thing and it's cute. He learns all the names and he learns about what nocturnal is and carnivore and all that sort of thing. So
I'm guessing you're learning a lot as well.
Well, no, it's good. It's something I'm very personally interested in. But beyond that, there are like Arabic shows out there on YouTube as well. There's like Kalam Kids and Kiki Wana Douche, where they just very simply go through like, what cat is in Arabic, the numbers 1 to 10, all of that. So it's very educational and there's an Arabic like basis to it. And they sometimes go into like the Islamic aspect as well, where they'll talk in English about that. But the quality is there's always like a drop in quality with that because they're independent creators doing it on YouTube. Do you think there's still a gap in quality, or with things and potential franchises like Time Hoppers you just talked about? Is it going to meet the levels of Disney or even beyond what we're seeing in animation happening right now with the likes of Spider-Verse and Puss in Boots? Even the new Shrek has like new animated updated style. Is there a gap, or do you think we're starting to meet that now?
So there is a gap, right? There is a gap. The problem here is that these industries have millions and millions of dollars being pushed into them and pumped into them. Non-Muslim, the mainstream industry, you find that investors find a lot of value in media, whereas within our own Muslim community, we very rarely find value in media. Things are starting to change. Like, years ago, you wouldn't have found masjids starting up their own podcasts. And now they are. They're on YouTube now. And
we filmed a few episodes in Evington Community Centre Masjid in Leicester.
Shout out to Evington, mashallah. Yeah. That's amazing, right? They're starting to see the value of having media. But for a long time, we haven't. And to be honest, we're still very far behind many of our high net worth individuals in the Muslim community that I've had conversations with to pitch to them this idea that we need your investment for these kind of things. Some of them get it, but a lot of them don't understand the value that it can bring. And the problem here is then, these are the other mainstream industries are just going to grow and grow and grow. And we're not going to be able to catch up to that gap. Yes, we're catching up in a way. Like I said, there are these kind of IPs, time hoppers, etc. But it's never going to reach that level of the Shreks and all the other examples that you gave if we don't have our community investing into it. And even more than that, you find that those lobbies and groups that are trying to push for their own agendas that go against our own values, they are pumping millions into Nickelodeon, into other media houses in order to show characters that have a certain sexual orientation, for example. They're actually paying for this stuff to happen.
But beyond the fictional element as well, they can be hugely damaging in real life as well. Because you see child actors go through Disney and Nickelodeon and where they end up in today. Because there was this almost like the Disney program or route where you would star in some kind of kid show, you'd end up with some sort of music contract, they inevitably would fall off the rails, and then you'd have some sort of a comeback if you did it all. And young people are emulating that. I had a lot of family in America growing up, and I remember the weirdest thing where, and this is like post 9/11, we went over there and I think I made some comment about the Iraq war, and people getting really weird. Like the Muslim community, they're getting really weird. Kids my age, I was like 13, 14. And there was this idea that you don't say anything bad about the military. To an extent that there were kids, I mean, it's very different at the time.
Sure,
I don't want people writing in from San Francisco and New York saying, what the hell are you talking about? But this was like mid-2000s where people were interested in going to like military school.
Right.
Why? Because there was some Disney movie that had come out, I think called like Cadet Kelly or something, starring Hilary Duff.
Right.
Where she was going to go to be a soldier.
Wow.
Right? And that's what a lot of kids wanted to do. Muslim kids wanted to do.
That's incredible.
And these individuals, I've spoken to them about it recently, and they look back and they're like, yeah, that was insane. But they were kind of brainwashed in that way. So it's
propaganda is true.
Yeah, it surprises me when you say there are older people in the community who maybe don't understand the power that media holds when most of us are glued to our phones or screens 18 hours a day.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's unfortunate because, when we're trying to tell them how media really shapes our stories and our narratives, they're not really seeing it. And it really does, and I think this is so important for people to understand is we used to say growing up that you are what you eat. Now it's you are what you consume.
For sure.
Right? Whatever you watch on your phone, on your tablets, on your laptops, that is what is defining your narratives, your personalities, and that's changing the conversations. I mean, I also work with an online Islamic school, and we went away for the team, and some of the parents and the students went away for a residential. And while I was there at that residential, the head teacher, he's the head teacher of the online school, but the school also has a physical branch. So I'm asking him, okay, in the physical branch, what conversations are you seeing on the playground? And he's saying, Shoaib, the conversations are no longer organically created in the playground. The conversations are created online before they come to school, and they're just carrying on those conversations there in the playground. So right now, the biggest thing that we're seeing for our children is the media that they're consuming is really creating the conversations that they're having with each other and the friendships that they're making. So if we really want to change the narrative, we really want to protect their fitrah, we want to flip the script, and we want to make sure that our children are growing up with the right messages. Media is one of the biggest tools here, whether that's online media, whether that's TV, movies. That whole media industry is so important for us to pump our time and our energy and our money into. That's what Muslim Kids TV is trying to do.
Wow. SubhanAllah. What a great point to kind of I was going to say end this one, but there's so much more that we still have some time.
I'm happy to go. I'm happy to keep going.
Let's keep on going. If you had to pitch your own show, on Muslims Kids TV or wherever else, have you ever thought about that? I'm sure you have.
Ooh, that's a really good question. I haven't given it a lot of thought, but I have had my own ideas.
Okay.
One idea that I really want to do is kind of relevant to a podcast scenario is I wanted to create like a children's podcast.
Oh yeah.
So I got this idea from something that my kids listen to. So there's like a 5-minute children's podcast that they listen to every day, where there's this guy called Jake, and he kind of every day he just has these new facts that he brings up to the children, and he talks about something going on in the world. So it might be, you know, a football team has won a championship, or, you know, something cool has happened basically. So something upbeat, and he also brings some cool new facts and figures. So it might be 5 facts about Pokemon, or it might be 5 facts about dinosaurs, or something like that.
Is this on YouTube? Or?
No, this is available on something called Yoto.
Oh, we have the Yoto player.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so Yoto player, people who don't know, it's like it has like its own
I didn't know if you wanted me to say the brand, but yeah, there you go.
Okay. I like it a lot.
Okay,
Yoto, if you want to sponsor us, do reach out. But we use that for my son, because he's a big fan of stories.
Okay.
Storybooks, and we have like a lot of Muslim-specific stories as well, but it's a great like audio reader for young kids.
It's amazing.
So it's got like, he loves this story series called the Oi Frog, and there's another one called Mog the Cat, so the series of that, and Elmer the Elephant, all that kind of thing. But they have their own radio show as well.
So they've got their own podcast basically that updates daily on the player. So you just like, you turn the dial to like the podcast icon or something. I don't know, my kids know how to do it. I sound so old. So I found that really cool. Like, they really enjoy it, I enjoy it, and so I wanted to make one that is like more Muslim friendly, basically for Muslim children. Cool. So that's something I'd want to do through Muslim Kids TV maybe. Another idea that I had was, because Muslim Kids TV is based in Canada and a lot of the productions are Canadian productions, although they get productions sent in from loads of different places around the world, and they filter them and then they put them onto the app. They haven't got much UK content. They have a little bit. There are some producers over here that we've worked with, but I'd love to do more British shows on the Muslim Kids TV app, because I think, you know, growing up, Cartoon Network and whatever Disney, whatever we watched was all American. All the shows are American, and I think having some Muslim British kids talking about something fun, or, you know, a live action, maybe like going through British Muslim history or something like that in a kid-friendly way, I think it would be really cool. So, you know, I hope these things can happen, and, you know, I want these things to happen, but it's only really going to happen if we can get more and more people behind Muslim Kids TV, really.
For sure. So where is Muslim Kids TV in terms of viewership and so, because it's a subscription-based service, similar to Netflix now. Can you download the app? You can watch it on your TV or on so we always call it the Halal Disney Plus, because it's the easiest way to kind of get the message across of what it is. But you get the app everywhere. So you just download the app on your smartphone, your TV, your tablet. You can log on the website on your laptop, and you just subscribe. It's £8 per month, so it's not much. It's $7.99. It's a lot. It's like what Netflix used to be years ago.
Basically. So it's not much, and you get access to about 15,000 pieces of content. So there's already like loads of episodes, shows, movies. 15,000, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's still counting, because on top of the movie and show library that we have, we also have ebooks. We also have games that we've produced in-house. So the advantage to the games is it's really good for parents, because a lot of the times the parents download loads of games on the tablets for the kids to play, but these free games usually come with adverts, and you have to usually download like so many, because kids want to play different ones. The games on Muslim Kids TV are very similar to kind of the games that you'd find on the App Store, but it has no adverts and it has no download time either. You just play them straight in the app.
Nice. So I have 2 follow-up questions. One is about branding, and one is about age range. So I guess let's start with the age one first, because right now the kids shows, what do you think the upper age is for like viewership? Is it kind of like 12, 13?
Yeah, so for us it goes up to about 12. Do
you think there's a real opportunity to go beyond to stuff that appeals to teens or even just adults, right? When I think of like Muslim focused things that I like to watch that I genuinely enjoyed, Ertuğrul, which was this Turkish show which talked about the rise of the father of the Ottoman Empire, and it's about 5 series long, loads of episodes. Probably too many episodes, but it was hugely popular because it was about these warriors who just were Muslim, and they'd be seen praying and eating halal and all of that. But it told this story of this hugely important thing that happened in Islamic history. It took most of Turkey, but then also Pakistan by storm as well, because they translated it into Urdu. My grandparents were watching. It's a big deal to get my grandmother to watch something that's not a Pakistani drama. I think we're missing more content like that, because that was good, but it wasn't like the quality was still a little bit lacking. Like sometimes it would drag, the stories would drag, there were too many episodes or all of that. But it was the closest thing we had to like a Muslim Game of Thrones.
For sure,
type thing.
Yeah.
Is that something you see a real need for? Is Muslim Kids TV becoming just Muslim TV?
Yeah, so Muslim Kids TV has its main focus on children.
Okay.
And I don't think that's going to change. Maybe in the future, who knows? But that conversation has come up internally within the team before. And the focus has always been we're creating children's content. But in my experience of being within the media industry, Islam Channel, Muslim Kids TV, etc., there is a big gap when it comes to the teenagers and when it comes to kind of the 20s and the 30-year-olds and that kind of space. There is a big gap there. For the teenagers, what I believe is needed is going to where they are. They're on YouTube. They're watching Mr. Beast, Chunks,
for sure,
whatever, all of those kind of guys, right? And we need to be there. So we need to find people within the Muslim community that can create that kind of content, but it's rooted in our own values. So when they watch those YouTube videos, that can be fun, can be creative, but there should be nothing in there that glorifies anything that goes against our morals,
against our values.
So unfortunately, you have some Muslim creators, but a lot of the time they do fall into situations where they're talking about maybe relationships that are not appropriate for our young people. Or even if you're watching things like Mr. Beast, there's a big focus on money and richness and Lamborghinis and jets and all that kind of stuff. And again, that's not something we want to pump into the teenagers. So I believe there needs to be somebody who is a fun personality, somebody that the teenagers feel like they can relate to, and they should be creating fun things like challenges and maybe even like pranks that are appropriate pranks and things like this. It's all it doesn't, you don't even have to mention Islam or Muslim, but it just needs to be rooted in some sort of ethic and goodness.
That's my question around the branding as well, because I'm just gonna use the term like Jewish like content and stuff that's created out there isn't necessarily packaged as Jewish, but they'll often have the undertones there, which I think is quite a smart way to do it. When you put the Muslim labels on something, and we find this in Islamic finance as well. In Islamic finance, we believe that this is genuinely a good financial system for everyone, regardless of your religion. It's not just you're doing this, so you have to subscribe to this. It's something that genuinely should be replacing the conventional financial system, which has huge flaws, huge issues, and drives wealth inequality. Is there a case to do the same for this? Is there a time where Muslim Kids TV will just become kids TV and it becomes much more mainstream? Just the main character just happens to be Muslim and happens to be pushing these values. Or is that too large a change that requires like state backing at the moment?
So I hope all Muslim organizations can get to that stage, right? Because Islam is there for everyone. It's not supposed to be an identity that is particular for a particular group of people. It's supposed to be a value system that everybody is able to ascribe to, right? It's supposed to give value to everyone. And so I think hopefully the whole kind of halal Muslim industry should be moving towards that direction. I mean, that's why I called Dadhood. I didn't call it Muslim fathers or something like that. I wanted it to be something that is generic and that any father could access. But at the moment, I recognize the need to still have Islam, Muslim labels in there for you to be able to create your niche and to grow.
It's tactical.
Right? It's tactical. So even me, it's called Dadhood, but straight underneath it is the Muslim Fathers podcast. Why? Because I know who it needs to target. I've only brought on Muslim fathers, for example, because I know who it's going to target. And Muslim Kids TV, it needs to have that label on it in order to show, hey, look, we're creating good ethical content for Muslims. We want Muslims to come here. We want Muslims to support it. But I hope that eventually we can all get to a stage, all different organizations, Kestrl, you say it's the Muslim money app, right? but hopefully you can get to a stage where it's just the good money app or something, right? It doesn't have to be like that. But that we also have to be careful that as we're on our journey towards that, we're not forgetting that it's still aligned with Allah being at the middle,
exactly,
God being in the middle of it. It's not going to be something that's going to be devoid of that conversation of that this is all divine, right? That's important as well.
It's not that we're hiding this because we're ashamed of it, or we don't want to be who we are. It's just more that we don't want to have an unnecessary barrier for anyone figuring this out. Gosh, I think that's a beautiful way to end it. So Shoaib, thank you so much for coming on the show. If people want to find out more about you and what you do, where can they look for that?
They can type in Dadhood on YouTube. They could type in Shoaib Mohammed on Instagram. Connect me with LinkedIn. Just find me somewhere on Google, right?
I'll definitely be checking out Muslim Kids TV.
Thank you so much.
So yeah, look forward to that. All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Thank you for listening to the Muslim Money Talk podcast. If you like what you heard, then please subscribe to Muslim Money Talk wherever you might have been listening to this. Give us a like and share it with someone who you think might be interested. It really, really helps us out. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, and see you next time.